going to give you a method that you can find your deceased and your relatives out in the astral, and even your guides in the astral. Let's go, wonderful people. All right, so I've been having an astral projection in one way or another for about 30 years or so. Um, Read all the Robert Monroe books, right? I read all the stuff. So let's get into it. Is there a method that, well, the last video I had explained on some of the things that I have done as far as meeting my relatives in the astral and how it's a great experience. And that's just the tip of the iceberg right there. Absolute the tip of the iceberg. So what methods? I hinted at methods in the other video, and I don't think I really supplied it. There was just so much content to go over before that. So here we are. Methods. All right. First of all, you got to be able to have at least a lucid dream, right? Once you're there, a lucid dream is basically a astral projection that's unconscious. You're in the area, you're in the astral, but everything is hallucinatory. How you think, how you feel, what you see, the whole thing. But you can still use some of these techniques to do this. So, you want to meet your ancestors, your grandparents. That you usually your grandparents go first, and so you can always say your grandparents probably. The first technique you can have, the first technique you can use is one that lucid dreamers actually can use, and actually probably have developed as a lucid dreamer. You can create the character that they would have had in the physical. What am I talking about? Well, you can create their body kind of in the astral, and they will more than likely inhabit it. It is a thing. I've done it before. I call it creating a tulpa. A tulpa. It is a life form. It's a that is, well, it's a life form. Everything's consciousness. Everything's alive anyway. So you're putting it into the shape of your relative. This works really well if you know what your relative looked like when they were younger. Make that one. Say, I want to make this, I want to talk to my grandfather when he was 35 in this picture, or 40 when he was in this photograph. And that will appear. And now, that's not him. That is the tulpa. That is a creation that you made from your memories and your experiences, and it's a co-creation too from your higher self as well. So, and it's important to know that because what you can't imagine and what you can't remember will be filled in from the co-creation, from your higher self, and from some other things which you won't go into here. Yeah, so that it's fully rounded, so it's fully alive, so and it fully looks like what you want it to. Being it now, you can ask it questions and it will answer them in wooden um, ways. What do I mean by that? So you can ask them questions like, "So hi, how are you today?" Right, and it will go like this. I'm fine, like that. That's nothing, right? Where's the personality? Where's the life? Who is this? It's like there's no light behind the avatar, right? There's no life in there. But you can say things like, I want this to be filled up by my grandfather. I want him in there. Or you can have a conversation about things that you would have, you could say, I miss you, I love you, I really wish I could have this conversation with you right now. Those things are going to trigger that. That's going to go out there. He will feel those things that you said, and he will embody that almost as a given. Now, this embodiment is akin to how we embody our bodies in the physical. we see our bodies in the physical as us. And that's a large part of the reason why we go back to this body. Right? If you thought it was somebody else, you might be waking up in somebody else's bedroom. But you see this as you. If you created a tulpa that looks exactly like them and acted exactly, well, look like them, it doesn't actually act like them, um, they're going to feel a magnetic pull to that and embody that. And you'll see it come alive. This is what it looks like. So at first, it's just a tulpa. It's got no real life to it. It's got no soul to it. That's a good word. So it'll look like this. I'm fine. Yes, I'm great. How are you doing? I'm glad to see you here. You see how it came alive? Um, all of a sudden it was more animated and there was some soul to it, and instead of getting the 1,000-yard stare, it looked like they were looking and talking to you, and their head was moving and their little gestures and all that. That's it. You'll feel it as soon as, because in the astral you can feel like you can see here. You'll feel it. You'll feel it as soon as it happens, and you'll be like, whoa, this is a whole different thing. And then you're having a conversation with your ancestors. Now, for the average person, they always have the veil, and the veil is all the stuff that you don't really want to know, because it will derail your life down unknown and unattractive areas, non-beneficial areas. Let's just say that, right? That's what the veil is for. It's not there to keep people enslaved and all this other stuff that people talk about. The veil is created by you before you even got here, and recreated by you as time goes on. So you'll get a conversation. I got my conversation when I did this. I did this with my father, and I got a little conversation out of it. But then I strayed off into territory beyond the veil, and whoosh, that was gone. And I don't remember after that. And then I came back. That'll happen. That'll happen. That's okay, right? You got validation. You found out some things that you wanted to find out. They expect validation. Like they're going to tell you something that you would never have known in 1,000 years. Like, my old bracelet is in a wooden box under your bed or something like that. And you're like, what? Really? And then you clean under your bed, and then you find a little wooden box that looked like it was something else. And you're like, wow, that's amazing. Happens all the time. So, or like something that happened in their childhood that you could never have known because this happened like decades before you were even born. And then you mention it to somebody who's still alive, and they'll say, yeah, how in the world did you know that? How did you know that? Just say you heard it somewhere, right? Which you did in the astral, but whatever. So, yeah, that's one way you can speak to your relatives in the astral. And you can do that if you're a lucid dreamer or if you are an astral projector out in the astral. And it's really easy, right? You just create it and then treat it like it's them, and it will eventually, usually, become them. Usually. All right, another method is to just, when you're out in the astral, and this is like you could do this in a lucid dream as well because you're there, but you say, I want to talk to my grandfather. I want to talk to my grandfather. You know, you might have to say it a couple times before it comes through. Or you could say, higher self, I want to talk to my grandfather now, right? And expect it to happen. And if it doesn't happen, say it again. Now, keep your perspective open, because you can wind up in all different places. What's probably going to happen, this is a little more advanced, because what's probably going to happen is that you'll be whisked off to some place where he is in the astral. And that's going to be trippy. hold on to your sensibilities, because you're going to be whisked off into another realm. And yeah, like I said, um, last time, one was just a baseball field. It's not something trippy, and you have to align with it. They're going to align with that place, and you're going to align with that place. So it's not going to be totally trippy. Um, and then you can have a conversation. Again, keep your mind open. Try not to be um, judgmental. Try not to be judgmental about your surroundings, about what your relatives are doing, what you're supposed to say, what your mom thinks about this person, or all this baggage. Bad. No, just keep your mind blank on what they're going to say, and that really works really well. They tend to be able to. So now you got to enter the astral projection mind, right? You can't. This cannot be a lucid dream, because all the hallucinations will be there, and you'll think you're at work, or who knows what craziness is going on. You won't actually see. You might not even notice that you're talking to your grandfather or whoever it is that you want to see. You may think it's somebody else. You might think, so you'll be talking to your grandfather, or you may have actually contacted him in the astral because you said this thing, because you saw this guy on a video on YouTube. It's me talking about it, and you got there, but because you're still in a lucid dream, you think he's the waiter trying to get your order at a restaurant, and the whole opportunity will be blown. Right. So you got to keep that open and say, you can, of course, you can do some of the comments, some of the techniques I had with lucid dream. I want to be clear. I want to be open. I want all my waking consciousness to me now. I want to be waking consciousness now. I want all this waking consciousness to come to me now, 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 now. Right. And then all the illusions will go away, and you're in your waking consciousness like you are right now. And then you'll be able to have a conversation with them like you are with anybody else. Try and stay as lucid as possible if you launched from a lucid dream, because can get a little wobbly, and the stability can get a little wobbly. If you left from your body in the physical, it's a lot more stable. Um, but in both ways, if you go beyond the veil, if you ask a question to an answer you shouldn't know, your mind will not let you hear it. Either it'll be blank, or it'll sound like the adults on the Peanuts cartoon, right? It'll be all what? What? Yeah. And I've had that happen more than a few times. Um, okay, another technique. Another technique is just to ask your higher self. Like I kind of did it in this last technique. It's just to ask your higher self. You don't have to have this technique is a little bit better. This technique is going to be more designed on having a great experience. You can just ask your higher self, take me to a relative that has passed on. That's all. Just take me to a relative who has passed on. I want validation. I want to know this is real. I want to see a relative that's passed on. I want to see one of my ancestors higher stuff. I want to see one of my ancestors. Well, that's going to happen too. You'll be whisked off, or somebody will come walking by, and you'll be like, "Oh my goodness, that's you! What are you doing here?" Well, I think you were asking for this. Yeah. So that is also a technique, and that's more like you're having your um, better futuristic self align you with a better experience and an easier experience. You'll be able to do this a lot easier, because you'll let your higher, smarter, better self do all the work, and all you have to do is go along for the ride. But this is a astral projection technique, not so much a lucid kind of dreaming techniques where you could start when you're lucid dreaming. But that'll definitely get you to where you want to go. And it will take you to the best experience for you at the time. Where you may wanted your grandfather now you're being shown your grandmother, and she's got just absolute gold gems to drop on you that's going to change your life so much for the better. But because you wanted to speak to somebody else, it wouldn't have been great. It would have been okay, but it wouldn't have been great. But this experience is going to be great. That's the plus of asking your higher self to take you to a relative or any place. I've done it where I just ask my higher self to take me someplace. Take me, higher self, to wherever it's best for me to go right now. And the first time I did that, I just got lifted. I was on what was like a grassy field, and to the left of me was a pine forest, and there was a parking lot over there. And there was nothing right there. There was a parking lot and a pine forest and a grassy area between the two. There was nothing here. There were no buildings. There were no people. There was no interest at all. So I was like, okay, well, higher self, take me to where you will. I'm open for whatever, right? For whatever adventure. And sure enough, it started to lift me up in the air, and I was like, whoa, okay, I'm okay with it. I'm not going to try and do anything else. I'm just going to let it happen. And I got lifted up about 50 feet, and then I started to move backwards faster and faster and faster until it all became a blur and it was all dark. And then I wound up in this entirely other place, which looked like a 1930s apartment in the Bronx. It was everything you dimly lit, dingy. It had a heavy feeling to it. Anywhere, anywhy, any who. There's a whole long story with that. And I was there to help somebody else heal. It wasn't for me. I got a great experience out of it, but it was to help them heal from a traumatic experience they had while they were dying and living. And I was able to help with that. That's what your higher self can do for you too. So it's not just about meeting your relatives. And some of these people that you help, you have close connections to. They are family members or past selves. And another technique that I have already mentioned is to just get into the astral. You're in the astral now, and you know it. And you have your waking consciousness about you and everything. Everything's great. Everything's dialed in. And you can just feel who you feel in the astral might be calling you. It's almost like a quietness. It's almost like listening. And you'll just feel if there's anybody calling you. This is an amazing technique because there's a lot of people you come in contact with over a lot of lifetimes, and they're thinking of you. They're sending you love or hate or who knows what. They're thinking about you, and you can go to them. And typically, it's not hate. Hate is usually a physical situation that we have here because when things get tough here, we hate things, but that's only for the physical. So when you're not physical, you just don't have that. I don't know if you could hear the air in the background, but the air is going on. It's a little warm in here. So, and then you just let it happen. Then you say, well, how do you let it happen? I know that's not a great explanation. You just then okay, so you'll feel somebody asking, and then you can just say, okay, let me go to them, and just let what that happens happen. Some people feel themselves traveling a distance, but some other people feel that it's instantaneous. And some other people are going to have that person come right to them. Or, yeah, I think that's about it, right? The three possibilities really that you're going to have with that. And then you have your conversation, and then you meet this person. And honestly, that's more open than anything else because you don't know who you're going to meet. And that's awesome. I love that. Right? You don't know who you're going to meet. It's going to open up worlds upon worlds upon worlds. It's not just about your ancestors. But that is sort of how I met my my grandfather who was in the last timer's ring. You know, I just felt him pulling on me, and I said, "Okay, let's go for it." And whoosh, I went off. I didn't know what was there. I didn't know how to get there. I didn't know. I mean, I had heard that about it from Dr. Monroe, but I didn't know what it would look like or how to get there. I mean, right? I didn't know anything like that. And I just went for it. Let it pull you. Let them pull you to. It's all safe, dude. It's all safe. There's see the physical is unsafe in a lot of ways, right? It's so unsafe in the physical, you won't out survive it. It will get you at some point. It will kill you at some point, right? That's how unsafe it is. But the astral, it's safe. It's 100% safe. So, and I told you one of the worst things that ever happened to me was one of my grandfathers trying to attack me, running through me, literally through me, with a lot of hate and anger, and I didn't like that. But you know, it was akin to somebody hollering at you and cursing at you. I, I've had that happen a lot. I'll live. So it's completely safe. Let it take you. Have the adventure. Keep your mind open. You're not expecting to go anywhere, because when you expect to go someplace, you'll kick up illusions and you'll steer yourself away from where you want to go, honestly, because your expectations. I mean, if you want to see your grandfather again, we'll go back to that. And let's say he's in a house, just a house that he created in the astral from his memory that has nothing to do with what he did in the physical. But you're expecting him to be in heaven and have wings and a harp and a little floating baby by him, Cupid. You won't get there because it's not in your vocabulary. It's not in your breakdown of what is supposed to happen, so it won't be in alignment with you. You just won't go there. Or he'll try and meet you halfway in some kind of area where you think it should look like heaven, and yeah, it gets messy. It can happen. There is a halfway point. It can be a halfway point, but you don't want that. Just clear it all out. Clear out all your expectations. Say I'm going to go wherever I'm going to go, and it's a lot like teleporting. You just go there. At least I do. Some other people feel distance. I had one. I saw my great uncle. Great uncle, is that a thing? Uh, After I was in the astral, and I was in the astral, and I was awake, but I knew I had to get on this bus, this city bus. I don't know why, but I said, okay, it can't hurt. It's the astral. I'll just do it. I got on a city bus. The city bus worked like a real bus. It went down this road that looked entirely real, in entirely real looking cities with entirely real looking people on the streets. And I was standing in the bus looking out, because this is amazing. I'm getting a tour of the astral, and it looked absolutely amazing. And I was looking this way and I was looking that way, and it was amazing. Right? The colors were crisp, and you could feel a little bit of telepathy between yourself and the people on the streets. The cars look real, but they were from different decades. Unlike what if you drive go down Main Street or wherever there's a lot of cars parked, they're basically going to be from the last 20 years, probably the last 10, not from the last, you know, um, not back to the 1930s, right? You're not going to see any of those cars there unless there's a car show in town, right? But that's what I was seeing. And this went on for like 10, 15 minutes. And I was like, how long is this going to last? I mean, I'm down with being out in the astral for as long as I can, but my body is going to need to go, it's going to need to pee or something. It's going to need to wake up at some point, right? I don't want to leave it forever. You can't, you'll be jerked back. without your consent, honestly, to keep it alive. But eventually the bus came to a stop, and it had stopped. There were other stops. This came to a stop, and I knew it was my stop. I was like, well, it's time for me to get off. So I got off and I walked, and the bus went that way, and I walked. It was a smaller street. It was a 4-lane high road, and it had come down to 2 lanes. And then the bus stopped, and then I walked across. I walked across a field. I walked across a overgrown field with like these bushes and pieces of wood and cinder blocks and bricks and all this stuff I would never walk through in the physical because you don't know what's in there. It could be nails in there sticking up. There could be snakes. I live in the south now. There's all kinds of critters down here, right, that can bite or sting you. You never walk through something like that and all these shrubs. But I was like, I felt a pull, and I said, well, I want to see where this is going. Then I walked on the side of this old driveway, old garage, and then I walked in back of another barn, and I walked around the barn. It's just a long thing. Now we're going on like 20 minutes, and I saw what looked like a party, a shindig. I mean, people were dressed up. A couple of people dressed up as cowboys, like they had the boots on and the jeans, and one guy had a cowboy hat, and I saw these people. I was like, well, okay, here we are. This has got to be where I'm coming from. And then I saw it. I saw my great uncle, and I knew him right away. And he had that dual switch back and forth. Like he looked like his younger self and his older self at the same time. It's difficult to explain if you haven't seen it, but he did. And I was like, oh, that's why I'm here. That's why. And I saw, but he didn't. At first, he didn't recognize me at all. He was talking to all these stranger people, and he had a woman on around his arm that was obviously his beau, right? His lady, his wife. And I was like, who is, so he's in the astral here now having an affair when his wife is in the physical? That just doesn't seem right, man. That does not seem right, right? Um, so I looked around. I'm still exploring the astral. It's yeah, it's going over 20 minutes now. They had a party, and to the right, inside the barn, was set up like a party thing with tables and food and drinks. And people were chatting, and they'd be holding whatever drink they had, and they'd be like laughing and, yeah, and talking and stuff like that. And then I saw my uncle came up to me, and he said, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. Have a good time." And he had at that point he had some inkling of who I was. You could feel it. You can feel it. He didn't completely know who I was, but he was glad that I was there. He knew that he knew me, but he didn't really know how. Um, what else? There was another feeling that came through, like he didn't know how. I was different than everybody else. When you're astral, out in the astral, and everybody else there is deceased, or have never had a physical life at all, you look different than everybody else. I don't know how that looks, but it's so easy for people on the other side to pick out. So he knew that I was not one of everybody else, but he didn't know how. So I was like, oh wow, okay, that is what I wanted. That is interesting. And then I felt the bond to this whole place kind of get distance, and I said, okay, I'll let it go. Let's go back to the physical. And it all closed off, and I went back to the physical and woke up. And man, I wrote the heck out of that, because the physical mind doesn't really hold on to astral memories. You have to write it down. I do it in video. I do it in audio. I just talk about it, and then you go back over it a couple days later as well to further remember it. Because if you don't, the brain will not remember it. The brain wasn't there when it happened. So, right. Yeah, it seems to be in a way what you're doing is you're taking your memories from your soul and putting them in your brain and your brain won't have it. So you have to go over it again and again and again to make those memories in the brain. And you'll realize things. You'll remember things that your brain forgot. And you'll say, "Oh yeah, that's right. That happened." Yeah. So that happened. Anything can happen out there. The forethought, the afterthought to this. So was my uncle having an affair in the astral? Because he can, right? Who's going to know? Nobody even believes this stuff. How was I going to tell his wife, his living wife, that he was having an affair in the astral? It came to me years later. Why it didn't come to me the day of? That woman that he was with was his first wife who had been deceased decades before him. I saw pictures of it. And my mom was like, yeah. So I was like, who's that woman that he's, so that's my great uncle? Yeah, that's when he was young and back in the day. So who's that woman he's next to? That's his wife. He was married. You know, he was married back in the day, but she died early, right? That's what it was. I don't know if this was a going away party that he had or a welcome to the astral party that he had, um, or uh, a, a reunion party. I think a lot of us have a reunion party when we get to the astral. We reunite with all our friends and relatives. And I think that's what he was doing. That's what that whole party was. Um, yeah. But he didn't really recognize me, but he invited me to the party, right? And I've never seen him again. Never. Well, after all my travels and all the people that I've seen, I have never seen him again. So it might be a last timers sort of situation where he was like, I'm done here. I want to say goodbye to everybody and shake everybody's hand. And I'm glad I had the ability to go into the astral and do these things to see him for the last time and see that he's happy where he is and that he has reunited with all the people that he wanted to reunite with. I wasn't an extremely close family member of his. He knew me. He loved me. As a you know an uncle does. Whether they show up at all the holidays and do their holiday duties, but I didn't like live with him. Uh, so he had a lot closer people in his life. And you have to realize that you're not the closest one to these people that you see sometimes. And even your parents, and we will get to that in future videos. I have met my deceased parents in the astral. They have had other lives before you showed up. A matter of fact, they have probably had full-on lives that they really didn't need a child before you showed up. And they had everything going on, totally different than what you remember. So when you see them in the astral, they might be in a place that you don't recognize at all. Uh, but that's a whole nother thing for a whole nother day. or people you don't recognize. I'll go with that. The places seem to be things that you both have to align with in order to meet up. I'm not entirely sure why. I can guess because it's sort of a law of attraction kind of deal. You have to align with it and then you'll get it kind of thing. Anyway, I don't want to get too far off track. So those are the things you can do to meet your astral. Well, now they are your astral ancestors. Tip to the wise. Don't call them dead. I have had arguments with people about this in the astral. Well, I've been yelled at actually. I was like, because you're dead. And I told my mom, well, because you're dead now. And she was like, do I look dead? I'm not dead. Stop calling me dead. She's more alive in the astral than a lot of people here in the physical. So, yeah. What name I'm going to use? I think non-corporeal people. non-physical, it shouldn't be based on them dying here. You're right. Non-physical, passed on, dead. Yeah, they have a beef with it, and I'd probably have a beef with it too. It yeah, there's a whole other, and I think as far as your ancestors being deceased, I think that they are having a whole other life after the life. So, say you have 80 years here, whole life. You were a kid, you were a teenager, you grew up, you had a job, you did this, you had kids, you did that, you had another job, you did this. You got older, you got wrinkles, you did this, you did that. You got older, you got ailments, you did this, you did that, and then you died. Okay. Part two, you enter the astral. Now, right to the healing phase. Oh, we need to make a whole video on that. But basically, there's a whole other life after that, which probably, from what I'm seeing, it doesn't last that long. 30, 40 years. So, kind of wrapping up all the loose ends, all the karma, all the desires that you had when you were physical, at least for the most part, for most people, in most situations. We'll go over that other stuff in another time. So those are the techniques that I use to see my relatives. They work really well. They're really easy. You just call it in. You just do it. Um, you could do that with other things. You can experiment. It's the astral. It's completely safe. Do your thing. Drop down comments in the comments section, of course, and hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe so that you can get more notifications on what's coming out and what it is that's coming out.